Hey MTG fans! Welcome to another episode of All's Fair in Love and Lore. This week we have a character spotlight on Magic's most beloved Leonin planeswalker, Ajani Goldmane. Ajani was first introduced to us in the Lorwyn block in 2007 as one of the 5 planeswalkers that would come to be known later as the Lorwyn 5. Lorwyn introduced planeswalkers as a brand new card type in Magic the Gathering, and aside from some of the planeswalkers, there are actually no humans in this tribal block. Ajani was born in albino Nakatl on Naya, one of the 5 shards of Alara. Outcast for having fur as white as death, his youth was marked by isolation, compounded by the loss of his left eye to the perils of Naya. While we aren't sure exactly what happened to Ajani's parents, his brother Jazal stood as his sole caretaker and protector. Jazal played a huge role in Ajani's life as well as to the Casal Valley Pride, holding a position of leadership while Ajani remained barely tolerable. Despite this, Ajani found solace in his unique ability to delve into the essence of souls, becoming a revered healer within his tribe, though it failed to bring the prestige that Jazal thought it should. Fast forward a bit to the Festival of Marisi, which is an annual celebration of Marisi's breaking of the coil. The festival brought both hope and turmoil as Ajani faced a targeted attack, hinting at darker forces at play. Seeking to prove his worth, he embarked on a hunt during the celebration, aiming for acceptance. However, his success was marred by a brutal assault by his tormentors, exposing his soul-seeing power. Amidst the chaos, tragedy struck when a malevolent entity unleashed havoc upon the pride, claiming Jazal's life. Clutching his brother's lifeless form, Ajani's world shattered, propelling him into the unknown realms beyond Naya as his planeswalker spark ignited. When he opened his eyes, Ajani found himself stranded on Jund, one of the 5 shards of Alara, where he met Sarkhan Vol, who shielded him from the dragon Karthus and listened to his story. Sarkhan encouraged Ajani to harness his anger and newfound planeswalker abilities and return to Naya with a vengeance. Back in his brother Jazal's lair, Ajani discovered remnants of his brother's axe, fashioning a new weapon symbolizing his quest for revenge. With Jazal's remains nowhere to be found, Ajani sought closure in the Pride Center, where Jazal had been cremated. After spreading his brother's ashes upon himself, Ajani confronted Tenet, suspecting him of foul play. A kerfuffle ensued, leading to a perilous fall over a cliff edge, and Ajani's retreat into the blind eternities. Quick side quest. Planeswalkers often use the term blind eternities to describe the void between planes within the multiverse. This space is characterized by chaotic energies, primarily the Aether, along with mana and temporal energy. In the era of the Thran civilization, this interstitial space was also known as the Corridors of Time, the Halls of Time, and the Bastard Plane. Okay. So, Ajani woke up on Bant, another one of the shards of Alara, under the care of Elspeth Tyrell, whom he'd warned of the coming conflict. A couple of weeks later, he set out to return to Naya, where he went and found Tenek's mama. To his surprise, she had some tea. She told him that Marisi had something to do with the attack on his pride and the death of his brother. However, after confronting Marisi, Ajani was pointed in the direction of Nicol Bolas and set off to June, only to find that June no longer existed. The conflux had begun. So let's talk about the conflux. But as the shards of Alara moved closer to reuniting, the powerful dragon planeswalker Nicol Bolas from Dominaria aimed to harness the energy produced by this event to regain his strength. He employed agents to sow chaos and dismantle the obelisks stabilizing the shards, hastening the process until they merged in what became known as the conflux. The reformed plane appeared as a disjointed amalgamation of ill-fitting pieces, no longer resembling its former self, but a new world stitched together from 5 distinct microverses. As barriers between realms dissolved and lands overlapped in chaotic zones, the inhabitants of the shards encountered each other anew, grappling with prejudice born from their shared but fractured history. With the return of all 5 colors of mana, powerful new waves of raw energy surged across the plane, mingling long-forgotten magics and sparking conflicts as cultures clashed and wars erupted. At the convergence point of the 5 shards, a swirling vortex of mana emerged, the Maelstrom. Nicol Bolas sought to harness its power to restore his own, but his plans were thwarted by Ajani Goldmane, preventing the destruction of Alara. In the aftermath, Ajani was offered leadership of his pride, but chose to depart, leaving Zaliki in his stead. From then on, Ajani became a thorn in Bolas' side, disrupting his plans with strategic cunning and inspiring fear in the dragon's heart. Okay, so now we have this saga of Ajani and Elspeth. a bunch of back and forth with Ajani trying to get Elspeth to see her potential for greater good, but Elspeth is like, no, it's hopeless. So Ajani leaves, and then he goes to try to find her again on Theros, and then they wound up on Tesmos, where Heliod's forces attacked and unalived Elspeth. Ajani was determined to expose Heliod and spread skepticism of the gods, and in her honor, now Ajani wears Elspeth's cloak. Fast forward a little, and Ajani has made his way to Kamigawa to visit an old friend, Tamio. While he was there, he uncovered the nefarious deeds of Tezzeret and set out to hunt him down, eventually locating him on Kaladesh, which is where he assisted the Renegades, a rebel faction on Kaladesh, in their revolt against the Consulate, which was the ruling power over Kaladesh. After the Renegades secured their victory over the Consulate, Ajani was welcomed into the ranks of the Gatewatch, taking an oath to protect the innocent from tyranny. The Gatewatch moved forward toward their final confrontation with Nicol Bolas, picking up new allies along the way. Ajani traveled with the Gatewatch to Ravnica, where they battled against the Eternals of Bolas's Dread Horde, and eventually took down Bolas with the help of Niv Mizzet and Bantu, stripping him of his name and abilities. After celebrating on Ravnica during the plane-wide celebration, Ajani connected with Karn on Dominaria to strategize on how to deal with the threat of the new Phyrexian expansion. And, shocker, he reunited with Elspeth again. He told her about how her home plane of Capenna had survived a Phyrexian invasion. We talked about this last time. So she left to go figure out how that happened. Fast forward a little bit, and Ajani has to go rescue Karn from the caves of Koilos, which, much to Karn's demise, turned out to be the staging ground for the second invasion of Phyrexia, led by Rona and Shieldred. Rona managed to bury Karn under tons of rock, and the ancient interplanar Phyrexian technology in the caves prevented Karn from planeswalking away. Ajani tried to go after some of the Phyrexian sleeper agents, but was unfortunately captured and completed. While he initially resisted his sleeper agent programming, his values quickly aligned with Phyrexia's, and he longed to have his friends join his new family. Later on down the road, Ajani went back to Dominaria again, this time to prevent Teferi from time traveling to learn about Urza's Silex, where he was eventually defeated and thrown off a cliff. But that was not the end of Ajani. He survived and joined the Machine Orthodoxy and presided over Karn's dismantling. By the time the invading planeswalkers made it to the Seed Core on New Phyrexia, Ajani's skin had already been flayed and replaced by the Orthodoxy's porcelain plates. He tried to convince Elspeth to join him and the Phyrexians, but when she politely said hell no, he attacked her. Elspeth, being the baddie she is, was able to knock Ajani unconscious, allowing them the chance to escape. As New Phyrexia's invasion of the multiverse began, Elish Norn sent Ajani on numerous missions, including the execution of Shieldred, subverting the gods on Theros, and then back to New Phyrexia to protect the plane against the invading forces of Zhalfir. After New Phyrexia was destroyed, a very much frozen solid Ajani was brought to Zhalfir, where his body was restored and purified of his Phyrexian enhancements. Ajani was one of the only planeswalkers who retained their sparks in the aftermath of the invasion of New Phyrexia, and since then he's been traveling to other invaded planes to learn the fates of the other completed planeswalkers. Alright, let's talk magic cards. Ajani is referred to and quoted in so many cards, but these are the ones he is actually represented in. Ajani, Adversary of Tyrants, Ajani, Caller of the Pride, Ajani, Goldmane, Ajani, Inspiring Leader, Ajani, Mentor of Heroes, Ajani, Nakatal Avenger, Ajani, Nakatal Pariah, Ajani, Sleeper Agent, Ajani, Steadfast, Ajani, Strength of the Pride, Ajani, Unyielding, Ajani, Valiant Protector, Ajani, Vengeant, Ajani, Wise Counselor, and Ajani, the Great-Hearted. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode on Ajani Goldmane. His story is deeply embedded in the lore of Magic, and he was super fun to learn about. If you have any special requests for characters, places, or events in MTG history, let me know in the comments. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and as always, thanks for hanging out with me.